from ear to ear.
There you go.
Welcome to the Chronicles of a Chef and Father. My name is John Dizon, and I got somebody who I've known for quite a while. We're going on 20 years almost. David Forbes over here. The David Forbes. And let me tell you, the Forbes is strong in this one. Let me at least begin with that statement. You know, we just celebrated your holiday, man. May the Forbes be with you, my friend.
You got to know the power of the Forbes.
The power of the Forbes. Yes, definitely. That is such an ongoing joke for 20 years, but I love it. I love that we could still do that, man. And, you know, it's crazy. Like, we used to live together in Orlando, and then I moved here, 6 years ago, going on in August. And, you know, it sucks that we don't get to see each other as often, but
yeah,
having you here virtually with me and just collaborating on a podcast together, because you're also an influencer as well. So we'll talk about all that stuff. But, you know, you're an author now. You've been in the education system for the last 10 years, I believe, working from public schools to private school entities. Like, you just got a lot of credentials. Plus, you were a youth pastor, worship leader. We could slash everything as much as we can. Missionary.
Yeah. Just do it all.
But the cool part is we get to chronicle a little bit about your story today, and that's what this is all about. Is just, hey, let's get to know who David Forbes is. So, David, go ahead and just talk a little bit about yourself, brother, and why you're on today.
Well, like you said, I guess it all started when, you know, I had a great youth pastor when I was growing up, and I wanted to live a life that changed the world and that helped students, helped kids. So that pushed me towards ministry, that pushed me towards education, that pushed me towards where I am now, where I'm writing a book that is meant for children, but really anybody could read it, because I mean, growing up, I read all the classic novels. That's what I loved. And I read books nowadays, and I just don't feel that they have the same heart. They don't have the same intellect that those older books had. And I wanted to write a book that was not just fun, but was deep. And like for the kids, you know, it's a fun adventure story. But for any adult who's reading it, you know, it's deep and it's probably going to make you cry.
Well, let's go deep into that a little bit, actually. So that's a great statement, first of all, what you're saying. A lot of people, even the youth, don't take the ecologies on face value as they should. The liberal arts, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So when we look at literature today, what are we seeing that's weak because it doesn't give that deep, thought-provoking and freedom of thinking, right? When we read books, what is lacking in today's literature is my question to you.
Yeah, I feel it's lazy writing, really. And I don't want to call anybody out too much, but I mean, you've been there. You've watched TV shows or read books, and you see a main author main character just doing something that's absolutely stupid. And you're like, why would you do that? It makes no sense. Or it's like the main character, one of the main characters, they want to make that character seem strong, and it's like they're standing against this like whole army by themselves or whatever it is, and it's just like, why are they that powerful? It doesn't really make any sense. It's like you see the young female who can take on 20 goons by herself. So it's like,
is that really realistic? Exactly.
It's not. But it's.
Do you think, though, this is just a thought, like, do you think that the ecologies in today's time is formulated too much as well? You know what I mean by formulated? So you got the antagonist, protagonist, you got story. Like, when it comes to story and conflict, do you think they've started becoming like authors, not in general like today's authors, but just in general, like, we are too taught to formulate like conflict and make things happen to the characters, and then there's always this climactic point, like in literature. Do you think we lost that freedom?
I think in some ways, I think a lot of it is that the culture has stopped appreciating what makes men men and what makes women women. And so when they're writing the stories that would really bring out the heroics of them, it's like they, you know, guys want to be able to take on the 20 goons. And, you know, sometimes it's not believable, but at least you kind of want that He-Man type character. But then you put in, you know, I'm thinking specifically about The Flash, like on Netflix years back. And what was the Flash's girlfriend? What was her name? Do you remember? Anyways, I just remember like.
I didn't know he had a girlfriend.
Ended up being his wife later on, but I just felt that her a lot of things about her character were very forced. Like that's specifically what comes into my mind. And a lot of times you have like a hero comes in and they can just beat up everybody so easily, like Superman. And Superman's super strong. But when you have the Justice League come out and Superman comes in the end and just like destroys Steppenwolf, and it's just so easy, and it's just like, well, what's the point of this movie? What's the point of all the other characters? Because he just came in and saved them all. So it's just bad writing. You know, you want you want your main character to have a challenge. You want them to make mistakes and not just be. It seems like it's always, oh well, I didn't believe in myself enough, but now that I believe in myself, I can do anything. That's the complete opposite of the hero's journey from Greek mythology. Usually it would be the character's hubris, you know, Jason or Hercules or whatever, their hubris, their pride, that would end up taking them down. They believed in themselves too much. They didn't rely on the people around them. They didn't listen to wise counsel. And
Right.
now they lose. And so it's like you have a lot of these movies, whereas it seems where they end, that's really where the character should get their butt whipped and should then go on their second half of their hero's journey where they realize they do have to rely on their friends. They can't do it all themselves. You know, they're not all powerful. But in today's movies and shows, and they just have the character win.
Because there's no character arc to show them the struggle and how they become how they grow into it, how they become something. Yeah, the character arc, their growth, the fact that their eyes widen. Like when we go through a struggle, we go through a growth,
Right.
And we're not seeing that. So yeah, you're right. There is some form, to me, that is a formula. We're looking at it and in today's Disney type of films. Unfortunately, I hate to single that out, but I'm going to be bold and say it anyways because I'm not a big fan of their remakes. I'm just like, you can't even create your own idea. You have to remake an idea. Although I'll go ahead.
Just finished editing a video on Snow White, the new remake of Snow White, and talking about the character development in the new Snow White as opposed to what they did in the old Snow White. And I feel like they don't appreciate the old character of Snow White and who she was and what made her strong. So now when they do this remake, they need to make her actually look strong. They need to have her storm a castle and have all of these people gather around her who have never seen her before in their lives because she was hidden away in a castle, but all of a sudden they love her, and she gets a soldier to turn to her side from the Wicked Witch's side with a single line of dialogue. It's just lazy writing. It's absolutely unrealistic, and our kids deserve better.
I agree, and that's the reason why there needs to be change in that now. And I think the majority spoke when you got a 1.6 rating on IMDb. Yeah, and it's just like, I think they're starting to wake up like, okay, we need to do better writing. It is families that matter, not my ideology. I don't want to go there into politics, but you're right. We need more writers like you to give more thought-provoking stories so kids can see the freedom in literature and the thinking that expands our mindset. One of my professors stated that, and I appreciate him for saying that because now I have a better appreciation for the ecologies because I don't know about you, but I'm a byproduct of the public school system, and they never appreciated the ecologies. Never, growing up. So reading books, that's secondary compared to, Friday night TGIF, sitcoms, formulated writing. But now when you get educated, you really look into the ecologies. You're like, wait a minute. This is part of the reason why we have this, so we can have a meditative thought to expand my mind. Because guess what? If I'm always in my bubble, like right now, we're in a box on a video camera, right? Mm-hmm. But if we never went out of that box, we never experienced something new.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with society, even with the social media platform. These kids are still at home. They're watching my experiences, maybe your experiences, if you do travel vlogs or whatever, through these people's lens, never doing it for themselves.
Or even worse, just flipping through mindless videos, and I do it too, like through the shorts. I saw a video talking to this young lady who said that on average she's on her phone 9 hours per day, and it's like just doing nothing, mindless things, mind-numbing things. So it's like you're literally deteriorating your mind, as opposed to, I tell you what, there's some chapters in my book that I wrote. After I wrote it, it's like I can't do anything else all day because it was just so heavy and so deep. and it took so much out of me. And it's just like I don't feel like, you know, the formulaic writers I don't think they'd have that kind of experience as they, you know, they write the twists and the turns, and you know, bringing something back that you talked about 100 pages ago, and or the very beginning of the very beginning of the book. It's like you introduce something in the first chapter and showcase it in the last chapter, kind of thing. There's such beauty in writing, and such, you know, it's an honor to be able to tell a story like this.
That is awesome, bro. You know, let's talk a little bit about our history, so that way people kind of develop that context. Now, I think in some ways, David, we were able to capture some of the context of why you wrote a book, but I want to develop this, you know, more context of why our relationship is the way it is, and educate the people who are going to watch this film, because we've known each other for almost 20 years, as mentioned, probably just right in the beginning. But the way we met is not only through Christ, because, you know, the people who watch this is part of my faith-based community, but we met when you were an intern at the church I was attending back in 2007 in the summer, right?
Yeah, you were working with a children's ministry. I don't think you had any kids of your own at that time.
That's true. Neither did you.
No, no.
And then you kind of disappeared out of the picture. And I think your last thing in the summer was you performed a song in front of the church. And then that's when I discovered how amazing your vocal chops were. And it was pretty cool to witness. So, again, another hat that Dave wears very well. He's a gifted musician too.
Is that when I sang the prayer?
You sang a special song, but I don't remember what it was.
I know the pastor's wife really liked when I did the prayer.
I'm sure it was, probably.
And I do a version where I sing both parts, the female and the male part. I don't know if it's good or not to do it like that, but it can be hard to find a duet partner.
Wait, Pauline doesn't sing with you in duets?
She has. When we first met, she was singing in a patriotic choir, and I joined the choir so I could spend some more time with her. It was run by her youth pastor growing up, she also had a fantastic youth pastor who now runs a ministry called Designer Truth. I sit on the board of Designer Truth, and I've been doing some videos producing some videos to kind of point to their teachings online. They're doing a Route 66 series where they're teaching through all the 66 books of the Bible. So
that is so great that they're still up and running in their ministries. I know you've been involved with them for quite a few years, you know, so that's really great to hear.
Their goal is to get a camp eventually.
Really?
Yeah, where people can go and kind of learn about the Bible and also the history of our faith in this country as well.
They were really big on the history portion, especially biblical history, and making sure that I remember one of the things that when I went and visited Designer Truth Ministries was the fact that they were trying to get all the timelines correct from Old Testament to New Testament. So I thought that was really great, you know? So, and that's important so that way you understand how all the times happen, because really when we read the Bible, it actually isn't a mixed timeline. So them trying to really get it so people could understand the timeline makes you really see the Bible in a different lens, and that's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. I love looking. I was trying to develop a timeline of the Jewish calendar a little while ago, and I was taking all of these notes and trying to do the feast days and trying to really understand those things. And I showed Pastor Rick of Designer Truth all my notes, and he's like, "That looks exactly like what I was doing just a few years ago, like trying to figure all this stuff out." It's funny how people go on like similar paths, you know?
Well, you guys were always pretty like-minded. You got along great with Pastor Rick, so I do remember that. That is cool to see. Let's keep going with your Chronicles real quick, so that way they see the dimensions of our friendship. So you moved on. I think you continued education in Liberty in Virginia afterwards.
I went back from a master's degree.
And then you came back to Florida. You ended up coming back 3 years later, probably around 2010. And then I believe that's when I already had 2 kids. And you came back to the church I was attending to, and you were trying to, I think, even help with the ministries. And I think you were even at one point considered to become almost the youth pastor or children's pastor at one point too. So while being there,
I was hoping to become the youth pastor over there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I needed a job that actually paid, and it was a support-only job there. So I was driving 45 minutes there.
Yeah.
So I was
living in Point Siena.
Yeah. So I decided to. I ended up working at I actually got a job, a paid job, part-time but a paid job being the youth pastor and music minister at another church. And so I went down there and I did that for 3 years, and then I met my wife, and I needed to start making more than 16,000 a year.
Yeah, yeah.
And plus we moved into her condo, which was in Winter Park, Florida, which
Right.
was about an hour and 20 minutes away from the church I was working at. So I kind of needed to move.
Hey, that's just crazy how much we've known each other as we chronicle back to that. And when I say chronicle a lot, it's nice to visit memory lane so people understand like our relationship's really good, really deep. Like we always hung out together. We did barbecues. We would hang out, play board games, watch movies. Like you know, I invited you to Louis Doria. He's such a great guy. And so we
Yeah.
all were at least hanging
Pool
out.
parties.
Yeah, pool parties once or twice a month. Um, I think for me, when you came back the
Camping at
second time,
Moss Park.
camping at Moss Park. So, and I'm definitely going to share some of these photos as and B-roll it out, man, so that way people see the context of our friendship. But 2010, when you came back, that's when our friendship really grew, and I think it just started with just a dinner over at my house. I think I lived in Claremont at the time, and
Yeah.
we were connected at church, but I was like, hey man, come on, let's go hang out and have dinner together. And my two kids were there, so they were observing you like a microscope and trying to have a mature adult conversation with you. You always said that about them, but yeah, the cool part was seeing you back, meet Pauline, your wife now, and see you dating and just seeing that significant half like balance you out, man, and the love that you had for each other. Like what an honor. And you asked me to be part of your groom, and I was really honored with that. Tyson being your best man. What a great wedding. Outdoors couldn't have been any perfect outside. You know what I mean? The weather was perfect there. The engagement photos were perfect weather. Like you had a great day, a
People
successful day.
question me having a January wedding outside. I was like, "This is Florida," and it was 70 degrees. It was beautiful. So
Facts.
people question me, but I knew what I was talking about.
Yep. And to see you also begin to have your own family, like I have 3 kids. You saw me have that, and I got to see you have 3 kids as well. And my goodness, man. And then
Two boys and a girl.
2 boys and a girl, 2 boys and a girl as well. It's
There
just
you go, buddy.
wow, man. Like oh man, I just enjoy that, and they're growing up fast. Like you said, I think your oldest is 6 now, right, or 5?
8, 6, and
Really?
3. Yeah, 8, 6, and 3.
Come on, Eddie's no,
He's in second grade.
hasn't been 8 years ago.
Yeah, I know. I've been married for 10 years. So
I'm definitely going to put some photos out here, man, on this film, man.
yeah,
Because like people got to see the context. Like that's our friendship, and even though we're far away from each other, we still keep in touch, and that's the beauty. And I'm here to endorse your book. Most
yeah.
importantly, as we talked about all your paths and all the things that you've done, at the end of the day, you had an opportunity to author a book, and we're going to go ahead and share the title of the book. It's not released until when?
I am taking pre-orders right now until the end of May, and then I will release it through it's on Amazon, and also so that bookstores and libraries can order it as well through Ingram, and then I'll have my copies as well that I can sign and personally sell. So that'll be in June.
So
So
June is the release date. Okay. So we got June release date, and part of the reason why we're doing this video is so we can talk about the Golden King Chronicles.
The Golden King Chronicles Spring
of Deception.
Soon to be followed by Summer of Doom.
Summer of Doom.
And then the Fall of Hope.
What I love about your book, even though I haven't read it, so let's make transparency because I pre-ordered, so I won't get my book until later.
Yeah.
But from the synopsis, the main character is James.
Yeah.
So it's a father-son type of relationship, I would assume, because
there is a. I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, it basically starts with James, and he's a shepherd boy, or he's 14 years old, so he's a teenager, and he's a shepherd, and he dreams of adventure, but he can never go anywhere because every single day, just like his father, just like his father's father before him, they have to take one of the lambs from their flock, take it across this ancient stone bridge, and tie it to a tree that is just in front of this cave where supposedly a giant lives. And generations before that, the story is that giant had destroyed one of the towns that was just down the road from them. So now, every day, they take a lamb and they give it to the giant in hopes that he will not destroy another town. So basically, for the the price of one lamb per day, basically, they keep everyone safe. Like for that price, they buy the safety of everyone.
365 lambs a year is a lot to produce.
Well, lambs have a lot of babies.
That's true. That's very true.
And he has a flock of about 400. So every year, each lamb, sheep reproduce at 1.7 per year. So 400 ewes would produce around 300 or so lambs. So he keeps them around there. It can be a little higher, but anyways. So I just did that so that they could do that, and that of course is very symbolic, and it leads you into a lot of assumptions, and he has a lot of assumptions, but a lot of their history has also been forgotten, and that's why the name of the book is Spring of Deception, as well as he has to cross this spring. The spring feeds the entire area with water, and anything that grows near that spring, lives a long life, grows a little extra tall. There's a forest, the great forest just down the road from him, that has a lake from that spring right in the middle of it, and all the trees are just enormous. And his friends Abigail and Asher live in these bird nest style houses in the treetops there that are like the shape of a sparrow nest. And so Abigail and Asher come in pretty early in the story, and then they get to have an adventure together, basically. So I don't want to say too much.
Yeah, I don't want you to share too much. It's just a couple of things that when I was reading a little bit of your synopsis that you had online, does James have a special place in your heart? Because I was curious behind this name. That's your dad's
Because it's my middle name and my dad's name.
It's your dad's name and your middle name. So I was just curious because look, everyone will see Dave J. Forbes. Everyone's like, well, what does the J stand for? I'm like, oh, let's go ahead and expose the name there. So does James speak from your heart a lot? I mean, it does. It's very evident. But I'm just saying, like, could you expound on that a little more?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have a main character, you definitely put yourself into that character, and I would say that I've definitely done that with James, and like his voice is maybe some of his thirst for adventure and like really trying to understand, but always kind of in some ways feeling trapped, and I can definitely relate to that. And for me, not because I have to sacrifice. We all have jobs, and sometimes that job can feel stifling because it's like it wasn't until I was let go from my job that I could really focus on and had the emotional energy to put into this book. In 2 months, I wrote 18 more chapters, and took my book from probably like added 100 pages to it or something, and got it. I did a lot more than I thought it was done at 24 chapters, but now it's actually done at 42 chapters.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So that's a big, stout book. Like, I would say, would you compare that to the stoutness of Lord of the Rings stout?
No, I wouldn't do that. I kind of place it in between Chronicles and Narnia and Lord of the Rings. So Lord of the Rings is, I don't know. I don't put a lot of extra stuff in there, if you understand what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do. Yeah. He puts a lot of extra detail, a lot of extra things that sometimes gets lost in the point of the story in the novel, and I appreciate that. Don't get me wrong, but compared to like the author of Narnia, you got like there's description, but yet it meshes with the story behind why he's describing that. I feel like a little bit better. So yeah, I can see what you mean by that.
Like every chapter that I do, it has a purpose. It's like I sit down and it's like, okay, so what do I want to do with this chapter? It's like there's no chapter where I'm just like, I need to add another chapter in. I need to like add something else to the story to make it a little longer, or add some dialogue in. There's no chapter like that. So it's all just progressing the story and developing the characters, developing your understanding of the world building, and just trying to help the reader to understand where the story is going without giving too much away, and sometimes trying to deceive them.
Well, speaking of which, you mentioned that this was a in your, again, I'm only basing it off of what I read on your description, but this, you mentioned it as a children's book. What's the target age?
I would say that anybody from like 10 and over could appreciate it.
Perhaps
Some of
maybe
the
adults.
Yeah, some of the language is a little elevated.
Through.
Oh yeah, I know. It's 10 and plus, and the reason it's 10 and plus is because there are some words that a typical middle schooler would have to look up. And I did that on purpose because, you know, I want to build people's vocabulary. And I do view the book as more literature. It's children's literature as opposed to just a children's story because there's a greater context in terms of speaking about our culture. And it's a Christian allegory as well with a Christian message and basically talking about the kingdom of God, but doing that in a completely allegorical style, whereas it's alluded to, but there's nothing overtly said.
To kids,
My children are home.
it's all good.